Welcome to an inside look at Victorian mental asylums. The Victorian era spanned from 1837 to 1901 and was regarded as a time of improvement for the mentally ill, although today many would consider the conditions in most mental asylums as horrific and inhumane. This new era of mental asylums began after the Lunacy Act of 1845 was passed, the basis for laws regarding the insane that increased the amount of treatment options available to those in need and changed the status of the mentally ill.
During this period, mental illness could be defined as a variety of things and was often misunderstood. Asylums acted not only as a place to treat and house the insane, but they also acted as a dwelling to distance those who challenged the status quo of society. Women were often the victims of this treatment as they chose to speak against the sexism that was evident during this period. They were often accused of being hysteric or having other illnesses that were fabricated in order to silence unwanted opinions. Electroconvulsive therapy, also known as shock therapy, began in the 1850s as scientists began to research the effects of electrical methods in the treatment of disease. Often used to treat severe depression or other mental illnesses, shock therapy induced a seizure by sending an electric current through the brain. Although electroconvulsive therapy and other types of shock therapy were experimented with during this period, they were popularized later in the 20th century.
Hydrotherapy, another method of treatment during the Victorian era, involved the heating or cooling of water for use with wraps, baths, or sprays. Continuous bath treatments were used for patients suffering from insomnia, suicidal and assaultive behavior, and extreme excitement or agitation. They were used to calm and relax patients, as well as slow blood flow, resulting in decreased physical and mental activity.
In addition to the medical treatments of the era, restraints were also used. For example, the Utica crib's purpose was to contain and calm restless patients. Designed almost like a baby's crib with a slatted lid, it could not be opened from the inside. While it was praised by some for limiting restraints, many argued for their removal, and by the late 19th century, cribs were not often used. Other methods of restraints and treatments included straitjackets, manacles, and solitary confinement.
Brutality also followed these treatments, and conditions in Victorian asylums were often harsh. Depending on the asylum, each patient received a small private room or overcrowded ward. In both cases, rooms were dirty and mattresses were often infected with body lice or other insects. However, these gross living conditions could sometimes be avoided if the patient's family could afford a private institution. Such institutions offered secluded peace and shelter from the judgment of society.
On the other hand, asylums also offered relief for patients struggling economically as they were able to have a place to stay and food to eat, as well as better hygiene. Others were not so enthusiastic about their daily routines. Some despised their stays at the mental institutions, even comparing it to prison. In fact, one patient at the Royal Edinburgh Asylum wrote in a letter, "I am suffering the most awful agonies inwardly by being forced to swallow unlimited quantities of every kind of food and liquid every few hours." And another patient recorded, "I assure you, my life here has been one of exceptional horror, forced to eat large quantities of coarse food which I could not digest."
Daily routines usually consisted of baths, several meals, chores, and outdoor time. Each was believed to improve the patient's conditions. However, they had to follow these routines strictly, which upset some patients, causing them to be more insane. After mental institutions gained a poor stigma of abuse and neglect, they were forced to shut down in the later half of the 20th century. And now, the only mental centers available are either privately run or community-based.